Well, again, everybody, this is Steve coming back to you, picking up where we left off at on the last one. I also this time have my kitty up here helping me out with my recording, so if you hear him doing a meow meow in the background, that's just him adding his commentary. Uh, Anywho, back to what I was saying. With Rupert. Rupert is kind of an interesting one because he appears at the beginning of book 7 as sort of this prequel or flashback, I should say. And when he gets there, he meets two of the guys, Patrick and Clifford, and they all get together in their team. And the thing is, that's funny is, Rupert was in college classes when he got abducted. So he was in the middle of his accounting college classes. Patrick was out just on the job site. And Clifford, I don't remember where he was at, but they were all kind of, all about the same age, got snatched at the same time. And they ended up forming a team that they, they ended up forming a team that went out on the trail, and partway down they picked up Peter Galloway, who's an information technology specialist. And what's funny about him is he is so good at what he does in the information technology sector, especially working inside of the controller technologies and other things like that, that the running joke with him is, and Rupert happens to mention this. He's like, who needs Google when you have, when you have Perry Galloway? Because this guy, I mean, if it's on the network and it can be found, he can find it. He's that good. What's interesting about these guys, part of the reason that they were introduced is they are kind of the supply and logistics for Simon and his team in the last leg of the race across the 6th hextant. Because what happened with Rupert and his team was they got down to the 5th hextant, they got in there, and then got caught up in all of the luxuries and easy living and stuff like that of the 5th hextant. Because like I had mentioned before, the 5th hextant is a honeypot. It's there to trap racers and convince them not to continue on, or make sure they can't continue on. And if you stay there long enough, they tell you either become our slave or get out. And so they willingly become the slaves so they can stay in there and continue enjoying the comforts. Later on, that just like Ramiro, they wise up and go, yeah, we should probably get out of here. So one of the things that they start doing is they use their position and their influence and connections and stuff, and they start preparing for the journey across the 6th hextant, because they realize this is not going to be easy. This is going to be a very difficult journey. So they start collecting food wafers, other preserved foods, and they they collect these together along with barrels of sealed barrels of fresh water, hay and provender for the horses and fodder and stuff, because they know that at some point in time they're going to have to make that journey all the way across. And they make a number of journeys across there, so they figure out real quickly how to get across there the best way possible, exactly what they're going to need. So basically they make the mistakes ahead of time, so that when the time comes for them to actually go up the mountain, cross the last mile, and then reach the finish line, they're ready for this. And as they're prepping it, they're putting in their storage caches, their food caches, and stuff like this along the way. Simon's team rolls in, and Rupert's like, "Hey, this is a good opportunity to prepare ourselves this is a good opportunity now to strike out and try for the mountain." So you got Simon and his 5 team members. You've got Rupert. Oh, well, Simon's 5 team members, and his 5 team members, because Alex isn't there. It's Simon's 5 team members, Rupert's 4 team members. So you got 9 of them. Plus, Rupert brings along a couple of biomechanoids that are his servants. So there's probably 10 to 12 people that make the journey across. I know there's at least 2 biomechanoids, so it would be 11, at least 11, if not 12, that make the journey across. I think it's something like 12 people counting the biomechanoids. You got Rupert's horses. You've got Simon's horses. It's a pretty good party when... Bye, Hemi. He just said goodbye. Anyways, you got Rupert's horses and Simon's horses, and they all go together and head towards towards Black Mountain. And if it wasn't for all of Rupert's planning and preparation and everything else that he and his team did, Simon's team might not have made it to Black Mountain, or if they did make it, they might not have made it up the mountain, because they didn't know what they were walking into, but Rupert did. Rupert had been there. He'd gone out and back along with his guys a number of times, and they had stashed supplies. They had stashed everything that they needed. So when they had the opportunity, they just hitched their horses, filled their wagons, and off they went. And they already would have had everything they needed to start with, and there would have been more waiting for them out there in the area in front of the flatlands, these dystopian flatlands that were out in front of the mountain. It's just this great big perfectly flat wasteland of just barren dead earth covered in ash. And like I say, they knew what they were coming up against, and they were well prepared. And Simon's team benefited greatly from that, because they knew what they were up against, thanks to Rupert. So he's actually very helpful in that. That's one reason I brought him in there, is he's this useful tool that helps Simon and his team get across an area that they're unfamiliar with. So Rupert basically is the local expert on that. Let's see, where was I at? Rupert. So we know about Section 9. I already talked about them. Oh, now here's a cool one. You won't meet her until the second book of the After Offworld Chronicles, but I will touch on her briefly. She is this beautiful snow white dragon, hence her name. Her name's not a pun. Her name actually reflects who she is, which is the case with some of the characters I do. She is this beautiful snow white dragon who ends up becoming the best friend of Fallon. And there's in the Weirs of Offworld, you see this. You see her go through kind of this redemption process with him, because Fallon, as you know, is very self-conscious about his lack of height and the fact that he's a runt. And also, he's the odd man out, that he's not a normal dragon 5-year-old. He's basically somebody who's got the intelligence and wisdom of a 30 or 40-year-old human, basically. Very intelligent, very smart, very alone. He does not have... he has acquaintances, but he doesn't have any real friends. And she's the first friend he gets. And she is the best kind of friend, because even though he tries to throw her away and tries to run her off and everything, she just glues herself to him and just will not go. And Cassette sees this and sees that, here's an opportunity to help her little boy heal. Cassette's his Fallon's mom. She's the daughter-in-law of Zek, because her husband, I forget his name, but he's Zek's son. One of his youngest children. And but yeah, anyways, she ends up, latching herself to him, and the primary reason is she's the same as he is. She has the same issue of being a runt. The hilarious part is, up to this point, nobody's bothered to look into why both of them are runts. They just know they're runts, and they just kind of accept that, which is one thing about Dragon Society is, hey, you've got a deformity, you've got some other problem, yeah, we'll accept you. If you're this or you're that, yeah, we'll accept you. There's very little prejudice within the dragons. They're very open and accepting to a lot of people. So Fallon's kind of the odd man out in the fact that he keeps everybody at arm's length or further. But again, like I say, he's a very hurt and wounded young man. He's been through a lot in his life, and Fallon, like I say, Snow, she looks at him and realizes, hey, you're just like me. You got the same runting problem. let's be friends. And he's like, no. And she's like, oh, yes, yeah, we're going to be friends, and I'm not letting you get away with this. She's like, you need a friend, and I want to be that friend. So she's really cool with him that way. There's more to it than that. I'll save that for the book, but she is just this adorable, sweet as honey little young, female youngling. And, it's obvious that they become friends, but then they become a lot more later on. And I'm not going to spoil it. That's just kind of an overview. But yeah, she becomes the friend that Fallon needs. And his transformation is really interesting. You'll like it when you see it. Because you're going to start looking at him doing things and going, that's not Fallon. That's not who Fallon normally is. That's that's how much of a positive influence she has on him. Let's see. Simon. What was it? Snow. Okay. Oh, these guys right here. Summoning witches. They're only mentioned briefly at the beginning of the series. However, okay, anyways, yeah, they're mentioned briefly at the beginning. What they are is they serve two purposes. They're an actual witch, so they cast spells, do incantations, all that kind of stuff. What they're primarily used for, the first purpose is whenever the Brotherhood and Section 17 want to meet, they meet in this little bubble of, or pocket of, it's like a little bubble of space-time that there's no way using controller technology or the technology that Section 17 has, there's no way for them to enter that without using a summoning witch, which is actually done intentionally by the Brotherhood, because then what they're doing is they're using these. This is the second purpose of the witches, is they're there as spies for the Brotherhood to keep an eye on Section 17, make sure they're following the contract, they're not betraying them. Because you got to remember, the Brotherhood is going to betray and backstab anybody they can, even themselves and each other. So they're paranoid that Section 17 is going to do the exact same thing, because why not? They're going to do that. So the witches are there, and they're used for a while, and they're used to take the agents up into this bubble where they meet with the Brotherhood. And then when they're done, they're brought back, and then in the meantime, they stay there and kind of spy on Section 17 for the Brotherhood, which is why the chief director knows this, and he's very leery of them. And if there's so he's very careful what he says around them. And if he wants something done in a way that he doesn't want anyone else to hear about, especially a summoning witch, he'll dismiss them and tell them to go away. I'll call you when I need you again. They're mentioned at the beginning, and they're highlighted a couple times along the way, but there's not a lot about them in the book, but they are an important part of the book, of the story, so I figured mention those. This guy's funny. He's a minor character during the beginning of the 6th book, while Simon's team's in the domain of Caspar. And what's funny about him is, he's not a major player. He's just a real small player. But this guy here, his name is meant as kind of a troll. And when I say a troll, it's not, the readers look at it and go, oh, okay, fancy name, big whoopee-doo. Think about this, though, that if you're the ebook reader, or not the ebook, the audiobook reader for this novel at some point in the future, you're getting in there and it's just like, they get in there and they have to start reading that word, and it's just I can't believe you did that, So it's kind of a future troll in the book towards whoever ends up reading or doing the audiobook for that. I have another one in there. It was the name of an island. It's just really strong or really long or stupidly long word or name for it. I only use it a couple times. But, the running joke with that is when the ebook, or I keep saying ebook, audiobook reader gets to that point, he's just going to look at that and go, no, Bob. We're just going to call him Bob. Because the name is so long and ridiculous, it's almost impossible to read. Like I say, that's just a little bit of fun I'm having for the future or audiobook reader who ends up picking up this book. See, minor characters. This one I'll let you go through here. This is just a lot of the guys that they don't necessarily play a minor role in the story, because like Cassette, she plays a pretty important part in not in the original series, but definitely in after Offworld. She might eventually get her own page again, but right now, since that's all I have of it, I decided just to lump them all here. But that's what this is for. This is for the guys that don't really have enough to justify a page of their own. If I flesh them out at a later time, then I'll go back to them having their own page. But for right now, this is all they have. Since I'm here, we'll talk about the Nandar real quick. The Nandar are a primitive tribe, which is funny because they're surrounded by people that are a lot more advanced than they are. And what's funny is their purpose in the story is basically as cannon fodder and as a tool for Zek to draw the eyes of the controllers away from the people he's actually trying to protect, and who he knows are the actual main players. He wants the syndicate to think that, hey, these are the guys that are, these are the actual guys that Zek's working with. These are the guys who are taking care of him. Let's go wipe them out, and then we don't have to worry about him, and Zek loses. Which is what he wants. He wants them to think that they've won that battle, when in reality all they've done is gotten rid of someone that he wanted to get rid of anyways. So they kind of take out the garbage for him, and he ends up benefiting from that. So, you know about the wolflings, younglings. That's pretty much it for all of the characters. We did cities and locations, I think. Yeah, we would have done those. Now the world, there's a lot here, so I'm not going to cover all of it. Yeah, I got another one in the wrong spot. Okay, hold on. Let me fix that. Yeah, this is, like I said, this is just something you have to deal with. There. Here's another one that, this is an actual name, so this wasn't an intentional troll, but I thought it would be a good one to use for him. He's one of the demons. Okay, I got another one I got in the wrong spot. So there. Don't mind me if I have to go in here and work on these while I'm doing this. Yeah, you got Black Mountain. Barrero, what was that one? Oh, okay. This is an interesting one here. The Barrero is it's a syndicate-controlled autonomous exploration starship. Basically, this thing is self-aware. It's got an AI on board. It's sent out on a variety of projects. One of the reasons they're using autonomous starships is because, they have kind of a personnel problem. Imagine that. Like Earthfleet has personnel problems, so does Section 17 of the Brotherhood. This is more for use by Section 17 because the Brotherhood doesn't need this. Section 17 does. So they use the Barrero to go out and do all kinds of little errands for them in the galaxy. Goes out, picks up cargo or drops off cargo, goes and does different things. It is, at one point, it's used as an arc because the chief director knows that they're coming up to the end of the race, and he's afraid that when the Brotherhood leaves, they're going to do scorched earth on everything, leaving them with zero technology. So the Barrero is sent out, and it's told to check in every so often, and if it checks in and doesn't hear anything after a certain amount of time, it's supposed to come back to the planet. The idea being that it will return with all of the technology that was stashed aboard it, so that if the Brotherhood does wipe everything out, the Barrero can come back and bring with it some basic technology. It's kind of the same technology you would use when you're terraforming a planet. Section 17 would have to start over again, but at least they're starting over from an original foundation similar to what they had before the technology was wiped out. It turns out the Brotherhood doesn't actually do that. They do kind of do scorched earth on a few things, but it's more like it's things that would benefit people. For example, like the 5th Hextant, they burn that to the ground. But the rewriting satellites, the only people that benefits is Section 17. So, and they're just like, yeah, they just don't even bother with those. They just leave those. They take in some other things and they burn those to the ground. But they generally did, for the most part, they just pack up and leave. And some of that is God, some of that is Caleb. Caleb, kind of makes sure that they leave the planet with all due haste, so they don't really get to do a lot of things to burn stuff to the ground. And the only reason the fifth hextant had that happen to him is the fifth hextant was a pretty easy one to burn to the ground. They could just flip the light switch on the way out, and the whole hextant just shuts down. And that why that is explained more in After Offworld, the Rise of Offworld. So I'll leave that for you guys to read. But that's kind of explained there. That's a small C. That's one of the submarines. Oh, Cargo Bird. These guys are mentioned at the beginning, and there's a couple of mentions along in the rest of the way. This was supposed to be something bigger, but I ended up realizing it really wasn't a practical world element. So after, I think, book 1 or 2, I just kind of dumped it. I do mention it at least once or twice later on, more as just a point of note, like, yeah, so-and-so did such and such by Cargo Bird, but they don't really appear much beyond that. But they're basically what they are is they're biomechanoids that are the local UPS service or postal service, if you will. They you can literally call one down because they'll be sitting up there above the ground and they're kind of orbiting, and then you can signal to them. They'll come down. They'll pick up a package. You give them a little money or a treat, or depending on what they demand for payment, and you send them down. Some of the birds will just come down, pick up the package, and take it anyways, and not ask for payment. It just depends on what it is and what they're having to do. Alex uses them a lot, but yeah, they're an important part. Clement Valley, I mentioned this one. This is something that they run into on their way through the White Mountains, if I remember correctly. This is like a large valley area that's in the mountains. It's colonized, and it's colonized primarily because it is this great big fertile flatland that sits inside the mountains, and some very important stuff plays out here. I'll leave it at that. Crystal Quell Lamp. Now this is another interesting one. It's a piece of controller technology. This was supposed to be used in a book called Planetfall. Well, actually, it was a book and a series. Eventually, I decided to cancel that, mostly because I couldn't get the story to work. I could get them on the planet, but I couldn't make anything else work beyond that. So what I did was I took some of the ideas from that I had developed. I farmed them out into the Children of Ember, and the rest of them I farmed out into After Offworld. These may or may not find their way into some of the other books, but they're there as a world element because I may use them, because they're a really neat piece of technology. What they are is they're this specialty. They look like a salt lamp almost. Some of them look like oil lanterns, different shapes and sizes of them, different lights. What operates them is this little quell crystal in the center. What that crystal does is it takes either sunlight or ambient heat and energy and pulls it into itself and stores it. And then when you need the light or heat, it can produce heat, but it's more for more designed to be used for making light. And you put this on a table and you fire this thing up, it'll light up a whole room. It's like the best it's like the best little room light you could come up with that doesn't require fuel. You just take this thing outside, set it on a table, let it charge during the day, bring it in at night, and turn it on, and off you go. Really useful technology. Like I said, it was going to be used in Planetfall, but that series eventually got abandoned because I couldn't make it work. Which, I haven't had like a complete failure like that since Striders, which I mentioned in a different video. I've had some that, they didn't progress well and stuff, but I never had one, haven't had one in a while that just hit a wall like that. And I got just so far, and then bam, just could not get past it for the life of me, no matter what I tried. So, like I said, that was abandoned. Stuff was farmed out into other books, ideas that I developed in there that I really, really liked and wanted to keep and could use elsewhere. And like I said, this is one of them. I'm going to try and use it somewhere else. But that's a really, really cool technology. This is another neat one. This comes from Planetfall. Datacus node. They come in various sizes. What a Datacus node is it is a specialized piece of controller technology that allows you access to all controller technology. We're talking transporters, replicators, long-range sensors, a whole bunch of other stuff. So it's kind of like all this controller technology packaged, or wrapped up in one small package. The big ones, like you see in the picture, those are more there for after planet is terraformed and colonized. They have smaller ones that are roughly the size of a hot water heater that are brought along on like away missions. They're brought along on terraforming projects, and they give you access to all the basic controller technology wherever you go. So your implants have access to the same things you would on Offworld, on Ember, etc. like that. And you bring that with you, so you have access to those things. And that's what those are used for. You don't see them mentioned. They were supposed to be used in Planetfall, but I'm going to end up using them in probably the Children of Ember, and I might use them again in some of the later books, like the Guardians of Offworld and other ones like that. So it'll be used. That's why it's still in here as a note, but it's kind of a neat technology. Demi Barter, I can leave you to just read that one. That and Demi Kingdom. I have a thing in here about the Dragon Core. That one is an interesting read. It's not as long as I thought it was. Okay, never mind then. I gotta fix that. I just realized that didn't put that up. Let me go find my other two Dragon Weirs. Oh, actually, I find them faster this way. Yay, fixing something live on video. Okay. Yeah, I got some dragons I'm missing in here. I'm gonna have to fix that too. I'll make a note to myself and fix that. But yeah, I've got 2 additional weirs that I identified, and I've got the dragons that go with them. There, got the note for myself. If I'm actively writing, I will usually keep this pretty up to date. But if I'm not actively working on stuff, I'll miss things like that, which I really should have had that in there. I don't know why those weren't in there. But anyhow, Dragon Core, that's an island. Dragon Islands, that's the Children of Ember, so I'm not going to worry about that. Dragon Order, I've already explained that, and the Weirs. Yeah, I already explained that one. And your wand. Okay, that's Children of Ember. Flash transporters. Now, here's an interesting thing about the flash transporters is they're a type of point-to-point particle transporter. They're I would say if you've watched Stargate, the type of transporters that the Asgard had, that would be a type of flash transporter. It's just a little flash of light and you're gone, or flash of light and you're there. Same basic idea. What's interesting about this is, and I didn't intend to do this. I didn't do this, or I didn't go into this with the intention of doing this. But what I discovered when I started thinking back about the flash transporter and some of the other technology that's in that world, one of the things that came up was the fact that, wait a second, these guys had the exact same technology as Earthfleet, or in the Earthfleet universe, and then I realized, actually, this this whole Offworld thing is inside the Earthfleet universe. It's not actually part of Earthfleet. It's just in that universe. Hence why they have the same technology. And I'm not going to have like Earthfleet starships landing on Offworld and stuff like that. I'm not going to do crossovers like that. But just the fact that they are inside the same universe is one thing that I do bring out. I make a minor mention of that in after Offworld, but beyond that, I don't touch on it any further. Which, if anyone's read Earthfleet and then they read the Offworld Chronicles, they're like, man, these are similar. And then they see that little reference, they'll go, that's why they're so similar, because they're in the same universe. Hence why, you got Gateway Transporter is kind of the same thing as the Portal Transporter from Earthfleet. Slightly different application, slightly different way of, slightly different application. Yeah, it is. It'd be slightly different application, slightly different way of using it. Not as many features. But it is essentially the same thing as what Earthfleet uses. We talked about generationals, Hartcroft, Hextons. Identifier chips. Identifier chips are the little red or green or blue or whatever color they happen to be. They're the little chip that sits in the wrist for anybody who is a racer or a servant of the syndicate. Red is the default color, but there are other ones. There are special colors like green and yellow and black. You definitely don't want black. You absolutely do not want black. But there are different colors for the identifier marks. And the marks really, they don't serve any purpose other than just to identify you and give you your, identify you to the system and to others and stuff like that. If you don't have one, you're not either a servant of the controllers or you're not a racer. If you do have one, depending on the color, determines what your standing is with the syndicate. Those do play a big part in that. They're used also to access the resource nodes, so those are important. King Feathers, already did that. Oh, Klex. Yes, Klex. These are the local chicken species, one of them, but they're kind of like a ptarmigan, but they're more closely related to the chicken, basically, and they're used as a food bird. They're grown. They people eat their eggs, so they're essentially the local chicken. Life mate, that's basically the dragon equivalent of marriage, or a spouse, either one. Mahoy. Now this is an interesting one. This is mentioned a little bit with Arthur and Dexter. Mahoy is kind of the local version of the redwood pine in the fact that it is a very old wood. It's very fragile. It's also very valuable because it is so fragile and rare. So if you want something made of Mahoy, you need a master craftsman who's going to be really good at working with this stuff, because this stuff shatters easily. And it's worth a lot of money. So anyone who works with it, costs a lot of money to bring it in, to get it in. It also costs a lot of money to buy a finished product, because it takes a very special craftsman to be able to work with that material. Let's see, Maritime. Oh yeah, here's one of the things that they got from a crash controller shuttle, which is in the 3 submarines that are in Subton, is a navigational guidance and map table. Basically, this thing is a I would almost call it like a big screen TV in table form, a touch screen. It produces maps, it produces area information. It's a very useful tool, and they use it in the submarines for guidance and navigation and knowing who's where and doing what. It provides a lot of useful insight. It's like a navigator compass on steroids, basically. Very, very useful. Neural implants, we talked about those. Pantia bread. This is a local bread that a lot of people eat. It's a favorite among a lot of people. I would consider it kind of an artisan bread. It's a wheat bread. Well, their equivalent of wheat, but it's kind of like a wheat bread with sprinkled oats on top. It's done in a almost like a bagel style, but it's no, not a bagel. Excuse me, baguette. It's done almost like a baguette in shape, but I would call it like a fat baguette. But yeah, it's a staple for a lot of people. They don't, they might bake it, put a little butter on it, and then they'll just eat it straight. They don't like use it to make sandwiches and stuff. They use a different type of bread for that. This is just basically, you warm it up, you slap a little butter on it, and that's part of your dinner. So, but it's a staple for them. Quantum reactor. Do I have that in the right spot? No, I do not. Oh. Nope, that is the right one. Okay, my bad. I was thinking this was Earthfleet. No, this is the right one. Yeah, this right here, this is built by the nanites that are in a person. This is one of the power sources that powers all of the nanite technology that builds up inside of people who are endowed with the controller nanites, like the racers, the dragons, the wolves of Ratnar, and so forth. That's just like a mini power source. It uses ambient energy and vacuum energy to power all of that equipment. Recording crystal. Okay, recording crystal. This thing's pretty interesting because basically what it is it's this little specially designed crystal that can record audio and video, data, a whole bunch of stuff like that. And it's used for recording conversations, spying, so on and so forth. You see it mentioned a couple of times. It's not used a lot, but it is used a couple of times. And it's a great way, it's kind of their portable video camera slash action cam, if you will. I'm trying to think what the GoPro. That's what I was thinking of. It's kind of like a high-tech version of a GoPro in a sense. So, but yeah, it's used primarily for that job. I didn't use it much, although I can probably come up with other uses for it later on. But it's one of those technologies that it served a brief purpose, but then I didn't find any good use for it elsewhere. So it was only used like a couple of times in the book series, and then that was it. Resource nodes, rewriting satellites. Now these are interesting. Rewriting satellites are satellites that sit in orbit, geosynchronous orbit, above the planet. Now, when I say geosynchronous orbit, some of them aren't actually in a active orbit. They are, since they have their own sublight engines, they are in a fixed point in space and follow the planet. They don't have to be in geosynchronous orbit. They could be in low orbit, but because of the engines they have on board, they can hold their position regardless of, if they're in low orbit, high orbit, whatever. They don't need to be in geosynchronous orbit to, as far as, an actual regular geosynchronous orbit to do their job. In fact, they're best if they are in low orbit. And like I say, the engines that they have keep them fixed in their location in low orbit. And these are used literally for just rewriting the landscape. This, because you see them used a number of times. One of the biggest uses of them was when the Four Kingdoms was destroyed. You'll read about that. People are terrified of these things. They see these things doing their stuff, and people are just running for their lives because they know if they get caught in one of those beams, they're dead. Period. You see it used up in the White Mountains a couple times. You see it used against the domain of Caspar and a couple other places. So they're used basically to rewrite areas. Like if you have a natural disaster, they can go back in there and rewrite the landscape so the disaster didn't happen and stuff like that. So, I mean, basically they're kind of like transporter meets replicator meets weapon of doom. They're actually very, very useful, and they're used both for good and bad. Sea Storm, Sealed Continent, that's an Ember thing. Slavers, that was mentioned about the Keep of Woes. Spoken Fort. Spoken Fort is basically, this is dragon engagement. This is when two dragons speak for each other. It's essentially they're saying that they've gotten engaged. Not much to talk about with that one, but. Telekinetic interlinking. This is another neat one too. Telekinetic interlinking is a form of communication where you are drawn into the mindscape and you communicate mind to mind with the other person. It's something the chief director created because it was the only communication technology that he could come up with that had no way to be spied on. He was always worried about the Brotherhood spying on him. There's a lot to explain on this, but it's better if it's demonstrated, so I'll let you read about it in the books. But it's a really neat technology. It freaks a few people out that when somebody uses it on them. But otherwise, it's actually very useful technology. Ages of Offworld, I'll let you read that one because that's an interesting bit of history, kind of a fun read. Okay, we already covered all the animals. That's Despon's ship. Currencies is kind of a neat little read. It talks about some of the different currencies and how they run on the planet. That was one of the pubs. Foods, we've done that. The Gold Raider, that's another one of the ships. Pillaging Hind, that was another ship. That's an interesting one to read. Okay, he's one of the dragons. Valley of Lakes, that's one of the destinations. Nothing special about that. Yeah, and this just right here explains Arthur and Dexter's job and what they do. So we've done the world, we've done the cities, we've done the characters. So that's pretty much all there is about Offworld. And like I say, I've just done a very light brushstroke. I mean, I've done 7 videos, which is funny because there's 7 books plus a trilogy. And I have only just barely brushed the surface of what's in there. Because, like I said, the whole series is about 700,000 to 750,000 words. I can't cover everything in those books because there's so much stuff. There's history on the characters. There's history on the world. There's history on the technologies and other things in there. The cities and things like that. I don't have him, I think, in the characters. Let me see. Yeah, I don't mention him. He's a minor character. I probably should have him in there, but he's just a minor character. His name's Lucas. He wasn't in there enough, I think, for me to justify putting a note in there. He's a character you run into in the White Mountains. So he's a blacksmith. Interesting guy. But you see him for a scene or two, and then they move on. You don't see him again, and he doesn't really do much that's impactful to the story, but he's still a very neat character. So some of this you'll have to actually read the books to learn about, but you can get a nice overview. Oh, wait a second. I bet Lucas is in here. Come to think of it. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, he's under the minor characters. I was just thinking, I was pretty sure I had something on him. There he is, right there. Oops, right there. Yeah, he's the chief blacksmith of a small Bavarian like village up deep in the White Mountains. So he's an interesting character to meet in the books. Let me go back here and look at the minor characters, see if there's anybody else that's worth mentioning. Oh, yeah, here's 2 of them, Edamir and Arlok. They're biomechanoids, but they're also considered sons of the chief director because they're built using his DNA. So they're kind of his modified clones that are biomechanoids. So they're not living beings. They're machines made of flesh and blood, just like any other biomechanoid. But he has no wife and has no interest in a wife, but he wanted to have a couple sons, so he had Section 17 build him a pair. I know it seems a little weird to us, but to him it made complete sense. Yeah, there it is, Adar. Cassette's Fallon's mom, Adar is his dad, and the son of Zach. There's other smaller characters in here to check out, Pyreneus, Matthias, and so on and so forth. But anyways, that is the world of Offworld. As for the other books that I'm working on, after Offworld is complete, I'm waiting for some things to come together to release those. I'm working on print copies right now. The only thing I have is ebook. There's a long story behind it. I kind of explained that in my introduction to me video. Once that stuff's resolved, then these will start going out into actual print again. Yeah, after Offworld, I'm waiting for some things to happen with that, and then I'll release that one. I've got quite a few other books on deck to be worked on. I've got the ideas fleshed out. I just got to actually get in and write them. Or if they're already written, I just got to clean them up. So, anyways, that's all I've got for today. If you have any questions, comments, concerns, ideas, things you want to talk about, feel free to hit me up in the comments. You can email me. You can hit me up on Discord. Whatever you want to do. Let me know what you think of the books. You know, if you love them, you hate them. You know, you want to take them big and make me a superstar? Sure, go ahead. But, anyways, yeah. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation and this overview of the world of Offworld, and I'll see you guys in a future video. I don't know what I'm going to do next because I've kind of run out of content, but, you know, I don't know. I might go over some of these other books, cover what they are, and I might just talk about writing, because there's a lot of things that I've learned and I had to learn the hard way, like world building and other things like that. And I'll cover those in another video. But you know, if you guys want tutorials and information on, you know, how I learned to do different things, I'm willing to do those. So just let me know, and I'll see you guys in the future.